UFC Vegas 106 takes place this weekend, and in this video I'm going to be giving you my exact predictions for how I think every fight on the card is going to play out. So without further ado, let's get into the picks. As always, I like to look at my past week's performance to see what we can improve upon, and honestly, last week we didn't do too shabby. You know, we swept the main card, we started 0-3 like we did last week, and then went on a generational run. Jan Cutelaba, robbed. Charles Radke, bad pick, horrific pick, never picking Charles Radke again. I can't quit him, man. He says stuff on the mic, and I buy into it, and he just gets knocked out. Yeah, Brad Katona gets knocked down round 1. Was not expecting that. So we'll chalk that up to a bad pick. Jung Young Lee, the Finns hammerlock, wins the first round clean, then gasses out against the guy who I thought would gas out, because the guy he fought, Daniel Santos, was moving up a weight class and short notice. I thought he would be the gasser. Turns out Lee was the gasser. So, yeah, Korean fighters, just keep an eye out on them. That's all I'm going to say about that. Bruno Silva, yeah, horrific pick. I wanted to change it, but, you know, I stick to my guns. When I make the video on the Monday, I'm not going to change the picks. And Bruno Silva was one of them where I was really wanted to change the pick. And then Benoit Saint Denis, shout out, round 2 sub, made a whole video explaining why I think he would literally get the sub in round 2 specifically. So if you watch that, shout out to you. You probably made money on that bet. So without further ado, let's get into UFC Vegas 106. We're looking for the sweep. I can taste it. I can feel it. We're getting very close. We just got to get rid of the bad picks and, you know, let's actually think about this. First fight on the card, we have Tecia Pennington taking on Luana Pinheiro. Luana Pinheiro is on a 3-fight losing streak, so you might think she's mid, you might think she's washed. She is 4 years younger in this matchup. She's going to have the longer reach, and she's going to be the taller fighter against Tecia Torres. Tecia Torres notoriously is not a finisher. She has 2 finishes in her 14 MMA wins, so she's mainly a decision merchant. And what does Luana Pinheiro do bad against? She does bad against people who are going to bring the fight to her, people that bring the volume, and that's exactly what Tecia Torres does. Tecia Pennington, whatever you want to call her. So Tecia Pennington, I think, is a pretty solid pick. At -400, though, I start to think, hey, maybe we should put a little sprinkle on Pinheiro. You know, after all, Pinheiro does hit hard. You know, she almost got Michelle Waterson Gomes out of there in round 1. Against Amanda Ribas, her cardio kind of fell off a cliff, and then she got knocked out in round 3. Against Angela Hill, she couldn't deal with the takedowns, got submitted. And then against Jillian Robertson, couldn't deal with the takedowns and lost the decision. So can Tecia Torres do any of those things? Tecia Torres' main game is to keep this standing, keep this a striking affair. We've seen Tecia Torres clipped by lesser fighters, lesser strikers than Luana Pinheiro. So honestly, my first instinct was to take Luana Pinheiro. The more I think about it, the more I think Luana Pinheiro's cardio is going to fall off a cliff, whereas Pennington I can kind of trust in the later rounds to win a decision. So, for all those reasons, I'm tempted to bet Luana Pinheiro, but the pick is going to be Tecia Pennington by decision. Next fight in the card, we have Hyun Sung Park taking on Carlos Hernandez, and at first, my first instinct, again, was to take Hyun Sung Park, because Hyun Sung Park, you know, 9-0, he has a lot of finishes, he knocked out Shannon Ross, but the more I look into it, the more I'm like, maybe not take Hyun Sung Park blindly. So, in this matchup, Hyun Sung Park is actually going to be the smaller fighter. Based on pictures, you might think that Hernandez is a little dweeb and Hyun Sung is this big mega Chad, but it's not the case. Hyun Sung Park is going to have a 1-inch reach disadvantage, a 1-inch height disadvantage. Carlos Hernandez, I think, is going to be the better striker. He has better boxing. When it comes to takedowns, yes, Carlos Hernandez didn't do well against Ray Saruya. Carlos Hernandez didn't do well against Alan Nascimento. He didn't do well against Tatsuro Taira, who knocked him out on the feet. But I don't think Hyun Sung Park has the wrestling chops equivalent to all those guys. Hyun Sung Park is mainly going to try to keep this on the feet, keep it standing, and I don't think he's going to do well. He got knocked down. In every road to the UFC fight he participated in, he was knocked down at least once. Even though he won all the fights, he was knocked down by Seung Guk Choi. He was knocked down by Top Noi Kuram before finding the submission finish. So ultimately, I think Carlos Hernandez, who has no KOs on his record, he should have KO'd Dennis Bondar, but they called it a technical decision. Carlos Hernandez, who has no KOs on his record, I think he's going to be able to outstrike Hyun Sung Park. I think at this point, Hernandez is sick and tired of fighting Asian fighters. You know, Nyam Jargul in his last fight, Ray Saruya, Tatsuro Taira. Enough's enough. Let me finally beat these Asian guys. So against Hung Sung Park, I think he's going to have the better striking, and I think he'll be able to fend off the takedowns. If anything, I think he can get his own takedowns, and he's also the way more experienced fighter, way more fights in the UFC, only a 2-year age gap. He's only 31, Carlos Hernandez, so a lot of things going for him here. He is the slight underdog, and we're going to pick him, Carlos Hernandez, to win by decision. Next fight on the card, we have Denise Gomes taking on Elise Reed, and in this one, Elise Reed is mainly a striker. Denise Gomes hits with cannons. She has cannons for fists. So Denise Gomes, I think, can win this on the feet standing. I think she could potentially find a knockout blow on Elise Reed. And Elise Reed's main problem has been the ground. Lupi Godinez had her way with her for 3 rounds, and Corey McKenna did pretty well, even though she beat Corey McKenna. Who else? Loma Luke Bumi had her way with her on the ground. So Denise Gomes, who has no submission wins on her record, she's been chasing the sub in a lot of these fights. She's been going for takedowns. She's been getting sub attempts. She nearly subbed Eduardo Mora with a ninja choke multiple times in that fight. So I think Denise Gomes has the grappling chops to get this to the ground. Keep in mind, it is the Apex. It is going to be a smaller cage, so the grapplers in all of these fights will have a bigger advantage because of the smaller cage. And for all those reasons, I think Denise Gomes finds the takedowns and works her way towards a submission. She is Brazilian after all, so they got to have some good jiu-jitsu. So trust me on this. She has no sub wins, but this is where she gets her first. Denise Gomes to win by round 2 sub. Next fight on the card, we have Luana Santos taking on Tainara Lisboa, and yet again, another fight where my first finstinct was to pick Luana Santos. The more I look into it, though, the more I'm like, do I really want to pick Luana Santos? There's a lot of red flags here. So, number 1, Tainara Lisboa has not fought in nearly 2 years. It's been a year and 6 months, and the main reason for that is she had major knee surgery. So her game is Muay Thai, but when you see her in the octagon, she's mainly chasing takedowns and clinching against the cage. So with a major knee surgery, you might think that the takedowns aren't going to come as easily. She might not shoot as often as she would have. But the more I look into the tape, the more I'm like, wait, this girl is actually a very potent, dangerous striker. She has a Muay Thai background after all. She is Brazilian, so she's going to have some jiu-jitsu chops. Going against a Luana Santos, who's 25, 9 years younger than Lisboa. Luana Santos, her fights have been mainly at flyweight. Juliana Miller KO'd at flyweight. Maria Agapova subbed at flyweight. She lost a clean decision to Casey O'Neill at flyweight. She did fight Stephanie Egger at 135. This is a huge note because Luana Santos, she is no longer cutting to 125. She has a thyroid issue. She's on medicine for it. And against Stephanie Egger, when she weighed in at 135, she looked a little chubby, not gonna lie. She looked a little slow, sluggish, foppish. Any adjective you can possibly imagine. That's what Luana Santos looked like. Nearly got submitted in round 3 by Stephanie Egger, who's not really known to be a potent finisher. Stephanie Egger is also not known to be a cardio merchant, and Luana Santos was completely gassed out in that fight. So I think at 135, this is Lisboa's natural weight class. It's not Luana Santos's. I think Lisboa will be able to put a pounding on Luana Santos on the feet, number 1. Number 2, if Luana Santos wants to entertain the grappling, which is what she's been trying to utilize to win fights, I think Lisboa will entertain that and be able to flip positions. I think she'll be the stronger woman in this cage, and it's going to be a smaller cage. So I think ultimately Lisboa will also have better cardio as well. Luana Santos does have more ring time, and she's been fighting more often. But honestly, she hasn't fought in 8 months? So that's a pretty long layoff right there. So for all those reasons, I think the cardio will fall off the cliff for Santos, considering it's at 135. Lisboa is a tank, and I'm going to take Tainara Lisboa to win by round 3 sub. Next fight in the card, we have Conor Matthews taking on Yadier Del Valle. And so Conor Matthews, he's really a nothing burger when it comes to the UFC. His nickname is the Controller because he likes to go for takedowns and control you, but he's not really finishing anyone. He's actually getting finished himself on the feet. He's coming off back-to-back KO losses. Jose Delgado smoked him 2 months ago, by the way, smoked him. Dennis Bazuchka smoked him as well in round 3, and Francis Marshall just wrestled his way to a decision. That's basically how you beat Conor Matthews. You can either out-wrestle him, or you can just knock him out on the feet, and I think all those paths are there for Yadier Del Valle. Yadier Del Valle, high-volume striker. I've seen him shoot for takedowns. He's got pretty good takedowns as well. The only way I can see Conor Matthews really winning, even if Conor Matthews were to initiate the takedowns and, offensively wrestle, I think his cardio will fall off and Del Valle gets a late round finish. The way I see the fight playing out is Del Valle shoots the takedowns himself and just controls Conor Matthews on the ground, just like Conor Matthews controls other people. So I think Del Valle will get the takedowns. Not entirely positive if he'll find a submission, since Conor Matthews has never been submitted in his professional MMA career. So I'm giving Matthews enough credit to survive here, which is why I'm taking Del Valle. Valle to win by decision. Next fight on the card, we have Jared Gordon taking on Thiago Moisés, and I'm taking Jared Gordon to win by decision. Hopefully, finally, the judges actually judge a Jared Gordon fight correctly and give him the win here. Against Nasrat Haqparast, he put up over 150 significant strikes in a 3-round fight. Outlanded Nasrat and loses a split decision. Against Paddy Pimblett, loses a decision that he should have won. Against King Green, they just clashed heads and then it became a no contest. Thiago Moisés, he is going to be nearly 7 years younger, so that's number one. Number two, Moisés has been training at Fighting Nerds, so that is something to take into account. He's not the American top team. He's with the Fighting Nerds right now, so maybe the aura can pass over to him like it did with Mikhail Oleg-Jaychuk, but Moisés throws with way less volume than Gordon. Moisés gets hit more often than Gordon gets hit, and when it comes to takedowns, Gordon actually averages more takedowns than Moisés and has a way better takedown defense than Moisés. Moisés has really only looked good against a guy like Trey Ogden, who has no power to offer on the feet, against a guy like Mitch Ramirez, who took the fight on a week's notice, and against Melky Costa, who also took the fight on a week's notice up a weight class. I've yet to see Moisés have a career performance against a guy that I think deserves to be in the top 15, and I think Gordon deserves to be in the top 15 of lightweight, and I just think this is a bad matchup for Moisés. So for all those reasons, we're going to take Jared Gordon to win by decision. Next fight in the card, we have Matheus Camilo taking on Gabe Green. Gabe Green, his last 2 fights, he's been losing. He got brutally knocked out by Brian Battle in 20 seconds, and that was nearly 2 years ago. Since then, Gabe Green has moved down to lightweight, so he got chinned and then moved down in weight. That's never a good sign. That just makes you more chinny. And another thing I heard through the grapevine is Gabe Green in sparring, he got hit, he got punched directly in the chest, in the heart, and his heart stopped. So now I'm thinking, wait, Gabe Green, is he going to go for takedowns here? Is that going to be his number one game plan? He's moving down in weight, and he's going to utilize a takedown-heavy game plan. Because Matheus Camilo, the one hole in his game you could potentially argue is that he doesn't have the greatest takedown defense. He put himself into a guillotine against a guy who's 6-6. His other loss is also a submission loss. So you can make the argument that Gabe Green has a path here if he were to shoot takedowns. However, if this stays standing, Camilo is just going to smoke this guy. Camilo has insane calf kicks. He has good power on the feet. He fought an undefeated guy in his last one, Doroboshka Nabat. You can see the name there. That guy is who called out Dana White at the UFC 308 press conference asking for a contract. So Dana White was like, you know what? Instead of a contract, why don't you fight this Camilo guy? Camilo goes out there and just outlands him on the feet for 3 rounds. He was showing off his power. He was showing off his takedown defense. He was active off his back, and he was able to get back up. This guy Nabatov is mainly a heavy Eastern European wrestler. Gabe Green is an American wrestler. So if Camilo was able to survive the Eastern European wrestler, I sincerely doubt that Gabe Green will give him something that he hasn't seen before. So for all those reasons, I'm going to give Gabe Green enough credit to survive here against a rookie. So I'm going to take Matheus Camilo by decision. Next fight in the card, we have Julian Erosa taking on Melky Costa, and this is an insanely hard fight to predict, let alone break down. Both fighters are on 3-fight winning streaks. Both fighters have numerous losses in their career. Both fighters have shown holes in their game, whether it be that they're chinny, whether it be that they can't handle, cardio over 3 rounds. Both guys are heavy grapplers. I think this fight just basically comes down to who's smarter, who has more IQ. Who do you trust more in the cage, Julian Erosa or Melky Costa? Because I think all their skills kind of even out. Melky Costa is going to be 7 years younger. Julian Erosa, however, is going to be 3 inches taller and going to have a 3.5-inch reach advantage. So basically, the question you have to ask is, who's more likely to get put in a guillotine? Melky or Julian Erosa? Who's shooting the takedown first? And then who's getting the other one in the guillotine? I think Julian Erosa can guillotine Melky Costa. I think Melky Costa can guillotine Julian Erosa. It just comes down to who's going to shoot the first takedown. If this stays in the feet, technically speaking, according to the stats, Erosa does double up Costa on significant strikes over a 5-minute, 15-minute period. But Melky Costa has way better defense than Erosa, and I think Melky Costa has a wider array of strikes. He has the spinning kicks, side kicks, front kicks. Erosa is mainly a boxer. He does have some kicks to his game, but he's mainly a boxer that wants to fight to hit the ground. Guys even out on jiu-jitsu, so I really don't know how this fight's going to play out. If it stays standing for 3 rounds, I lean Melky Costa's way. I think he's going to outpower Erosa. Erosa's coming off 3 sketchy-ass wins. Ricardo Ramos put himself in a guillotine. Christian Rodriguez put himself in a guillotine. And Darren Elkins should not have been in the cage. He was 50 years old. Meanwhile, Melky Costa, Christian Rodriguez decisioned him. I think that's more impressive than guillotining him, honestly. Then Andre Fili guillotine choke, so another meme win. And then Shiloh Nerdabecki, he outlasted and out-cardioed him for 3 rounds, won a decision. I think Melky Costa's the side here. He's the minus 200 favorite, and it's growing. So I don't think I'm that wrong. I don't plan on betting this fight specifically. It's just a hard... It's going to be a fun watch. It's going to be a fun watch. So we're going to take Melky Costa by decision. Next fight in the card, we have Nursultan Ruziboev taking on Dustin Stoltzfus, and I'm not convinced that Nursultan Ruziboev is good. Not convinced in the slightest. The wins he has is very sketch. Eric McConaughey took the fight on 3 days' notice. He knocked him out in round 2, and he only had 25 strikes in that fight. Nursultan, that is. McConaughey was barely throwing back, and Nursultan was barely throwing either. Cedric Dumas, I poked him, and then that led to a knockout. Sketchy-ass win. Bruno Ferreira, congratulations. Yes, he got a counter right on him, and he knocked him out. So that's a great win. But Joaquin Buckley was able to take him down, control him. That fight kind of exposed Nursultan for who he truly is. Nursultan is a counter striker looking to only land big shots. And if he's controlled on the mat, he's looking to actively find a sub off his back. I think this can work extremely well in Stoltzfus' favor. You know, Stoltzfus could be seen as chinny. You know, his last 2 losses are both knockout losses, but he's a streaky fighter, and I think this is where he goes on his streak. You know, against Punahele Soriano, took him down, submitted him. Against Marc-Andre Barriault, decided to stay standing and knocked him out, which is aging well because Marc-Andre just knocked out Bruno Silva. I think Dustin Stoltzfus can hang with Nursultan on the feet, and I think that Dustin Stoltzfus will go for takedowns, and it will work. It's going to be a smaller cage in the apex, no crowd. I think Stoltzfus has way more paths to victory here. You know, Nursultan is a low-volume counter-striker. So if Stoltzfus just plays the range game, keeps him on the outside, makes Nursultan come to him, shoots the takedown, I think Stoltzfus can win the decision here. He's going to amass control time. I think he can out-volume Nursultan even if it stays on the feet as well. The only thing I'm worried about with this pick is an early knockout from Nursultan. But honestly, if you look over his KO wins, like they're sketch. You know, Eric McConaughey is not UFC level. Cedric Dumas is not UFC level, and that was also an eye poke. And Bruno Ferreira, yeah, he caught him. But Bruno Ferreira was also half his height. In this matchup, Stoltzfus is only going to be 5 inches shorter compared to Bruno Ferreira, who was like 12 inches shorter. So, for all those reasons, and Stoltzfus is a pretty big underdog, I think the price is not correct here. I'm taking Dustin Stoltzfus to win this by decision. Next fight in the card, we have Sodiq Yusuff taking on Mairon Santos, and in this one, it's going to be up a weight class for both guys. Sodiq Yusuff has not fought in over a year since UFC 300. He got knocked out by Diego Lopez, and now he's moving up to lightweight, whereas Mairon Santos on a 3-fight winning streak, moving up to lightweight when he's usually a featherweight. So here's the thing about Mairon Santos. I looked over his record. He has multiple fights at lightweight. He's supposed to be a lightweight. He's a very big featherweight, but he's a natural lightweight. So this is his natural weight class, whereas Sodiq Yusuff, he's a natural featherweight, and he's only really moving up to lightweight for a career change. There's no real reason for the move to lightweight. Mairon Santos, I think his power will carry over to lightweight. I think Sodiq Yusuff might actually lose some power. You know, he's coming off back-to-back losses, and one of them he got knocked out brutally in round 1. And the other one, he nearly got knocked out by Edson Barboza in round 2, and rounds 3, and rounds 4, and rounds 5. I think Edson Barboza might have taken the soul of Sodiq Yusuff, because Sodiq Yusuff used to be used to go out there, rush, try to get the finish early. That's what he did against Barboza, nearly knocks him out in round 1, and then after round 1, it was over. Sodiq starts throwing with way less volume, he starts getting clipped. I think a similar story is going to happen in this fight. Mairon Santos is an excellent counter striker. I actually bet on Francis Marshall against him, which was a month and a half ago, and I'm still upset about it. But I'm not going to make my Francis Marshall wrong pick make me not pick Santos here. I see a lot of people doing that. Oh, Francis Marshall, biggest robbery of the year, so we got to pick Sodiq Yusuff. You know, he's fought the guy who just fought the champ, Volk. You know, Diego Lopez just fought the champ, and that's who Sodiq fought in his last fight. Well, guess what? I think his soul has been snatched. You know, I think the same thing happened with Michel Pereira against Fluffy Hernandez. I don't think we'll ever see Michel Pereira be the same, and I honestly think that Sodiq Yusuff won't be the same either. And I think Mairon Santos has the power to just end this man's career. It'll be a 3-fight losing streak for Sodiq, and I think he'll be able to. I think Mairon's the guy to do it. So Mairon Santos, you know, survived the early onslaught. I think Sadiq's gas tank will slow down, and I think Mairon Santos wins by round 3 KO. Next fight in the card is the co-main event. We got Paul Craig taking on Rodolfo Bellato, and it's not a hot take to say that Bellato wins by round 1 KO. You know, Paul Craig is one of the chinniest guys at light heavyweight. The only problem is Bellato sometimes exhibits very, very low fight IQ. So it's not a doubt that Bellato knocks this guy to the ground. The problem is, once it gets to the ground, is Bellato going to do enough to avoid submissions? Well, against Jimmy Crute had him in some bad spots on the ground, and Bellato survived all of the submission threats. Tecia had him in a bad spot. He survived the threats as well. I think Bellato is good enough at anti-grappling to not get caught by something by Paul Craig. But then again, we've seen Paul Craig submit Jamal Hill. We've seen him submit Magomed Ankalaev. It's not going to take much to submit Bellato in this matchup based on Paul Craig's experience. I'm just not willing to go ahead and take him for that reason. Because Paul Craig might get knocked down and get a meme sub. I mean, that's not a good enough reason to pick him on Tapology, let alone tell you guys to bet it. I might just bet Paul Craig sub at like plus 900 if it's a good price. But other than that, I think Bellato just smokes this guy. Bellato is chinny, but Paul Craig doesn't really have fists to show off that chinniness. So Rodolfo Bellato by round 1 KO. In the main event of the evening, Gilbert Burns taking on Michael Morales. Gilbert Burns is 38, about to turn 39. Michael Morales is 25, about to turn 26. There is a 12-year age gap in this matchup. Michael Morales is also 3 inches taller. He also has an 8-inch reach advantage. I think Gilbert Burns is extremely screwed in this matchup. He's on a 3-fight losing streak, has looked mid to mid, each performance growing more mid every performance. I think he's totally clocked out of fighting. He has no real future in the sport. I mean, in terms of MMA, maybe he has a future in grappling, but ultimately speaking, I think Michael Morales can win this wherever the fight goes. It's going to be a smaller Apex cage. That's going to lead to Michael Morales having more success on the feet. I think he knocks him out early. Neil Magny had some success, clinching Morales against the cage, but other than that, it was all Morales all day. Was able to decision Jake Matthews, avoided the takedowns there, decisioned Max Griffin, avoided takedowns there, KO'd Adam Fugit. I just think it's Michael Morales' time, and he's also minus 800, so it's not a hot take. But as far as the finish goes, I don't think he's going to submit Gilbert Burns. I think he's just going to keep it standing. Gilbert Burns is going to probably look like he's going to quit out there. I'm not saying Gilbert Burns is a quitter, but when you're fighting a guy that's this much bigger than you, this much younger than you, this much quicker, faster, I think at a certain point, Burns is just going to collapse. So, Michael Morales by round 2 KO. Just to take a quick look at the odds here. Gilbert Burns plus 575 against Morales. I like Morales to win, but I mean, honestly, minus 800. It's getting a little egregious. So, my advice probably is to wait for the Morales KO prop to drop. Maybe bet that. Paul Craig and Bellato. The sub prop has not dropped yet. I'm not willing to parlay minus 550. So, I would say just stay away from the co-main and just watch it and just have fun. Maybe bet the under 1.5, but my advice is stay away from the main event, stay away from the co-main event. The lines are steamed. Costa and Julian Erosa. Costa sitting at minus 180. I'm also saying to stay away from this fight. It's either Julian Erosa or just don't bet it at all. I think the co-main, main event, and the feature fight are all going to be very entertaining to watch. Mairon Santos taking on Sodiq Yusuff. So the Sodiq Yusuff line went from plus 145, and now it's sitting at plus 115. If you're on the side of Santos like I am, I would actually say just wait. Just wait it out. It actually just changed as I clicked it to minus 135, which is crazy. But I think the line will actually flip into Santos' favor. I think Santos will be the underdog by the time the night comes. So I would say just wait on this and then bet Santos come fight night. Jared Gordon is open as plus 140, which is nuts. So that line is moving in a wrong direction for if you want to bet Jared Gordon. I would probably bet him immediately if you wanted to bet on him. Definitely don't bet Moisés. Matheus Camilo, great parlay piece in my opinion. Opened at minus 130, sitting at minus 200. I am confident in him, and I think you should put him in parlays. Dustin Stoltzfus, the number's not going to get better than this. Opened at plus 180, now sitting at plus 240. The line is flickering, so I would bet him now if you want to get him. Luana Pinheiro. Like I said, I did do Tecia Torres as the pick, but Luana Pinheiro opened up as a plus 190 underdog, sitting at plus 325. So at this point, a half unit play, quarter unit play wouldn't be the worst idea in my opinion. Denise Gomes, I think you can throw her in a parlay as well. So I think Gomes and Camilo, pretty good parlay pieces this week. I think their opponents have no real paths to victory. Carlos Hernandez, plus 130, opened as plus 160. So if you were to bet him, I would bet him now. Luana Santos, Tainara Lisboa opened as a minus 160. She opened as minus 160. If I can show you that, I wish I could. It's not letting me. But minus 160 for Tainara Lisboa, which is nuts. Now she's sitting at plus 115. I would definitely bet that That's a very bettable fight right there, in my opinion. And then Del Valle, I would say he's another good parlay piece. He opened at minus 450, sitting at minus 430. So ultimately, Del Valle, who else here? Del Valle, Denise, Gomes, and Camilo. I'm suggesting you parlay. I think they're good. And also the underdogs I'm suggesting you bet now is Carlos Hernandez, Lisboa, Stoltzfus, and wait on Mairon Santos, and you can probably bet Jared Gordon now. Thank you for getting to the end of an episode of Finch Chats. I hope you enjoy this one. I put on my Sunday best for my Monday picks. So let me know in the comments who your favorite underdog is. You know, if you disagree with my takes. You know, got a lot of steamy ones in this video. And if you agree with all, you know, just leave a like, subscribe, and have a great rest of your day. You're savage.